Here's Andrew with this morning's announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, April 4th, and it is a white day. The Math Club will be hosting the Trig Star competition on Tuesday, April 15th, after school in Severance 15. This competition is created by the National Society of Professional Surveyors and introduces students to what it is like to be a land surveyor. A link with more information and to sign up has been sent to your email. Please reach out to Mr. Badgley with any questions and concerns. Starting Monday, April 7th, and running through April 18th, a donation drive to benefit the Department for Children and Families in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, will be held on campus. This initiative aims to improve the transitional experiences of foster children across Vermont as they move caregivers. Donation bins will be set up in the main lobby of the Fieldhouse starting April 7th. We are specifically seeking toiletries, skincare products, backpacks, toys, blankets, and clothing, with an emphasis on backpacks, clothing items, and toys. For more information, please reach out to Riley Strom via her school email or look for the purple posters displayed around campus. Thank you for your support in improving the transitional experiences of foster children across Vermont. Happy birthday today to Hannah Albright, Michael Seminara, and a special happy birthday today to Amara Adams from your advisory. Happy birthday tomorrow to Cole Miller, and on Sunday to Madeline Atkinson, Grace Hagler Ellis, Ace Irwin, and Sophia Rizzo. Happy birthday. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Andrew. Our late announcements this morning. From Student Life, we'll remind you that as weather will eventually become warmer, and hopefully sooner than later, the school wants to remind you of a few dress code issues. Please remember to be cleanly shaven. Please remember that your hair does not need to cover your eyes, nor should it. If you are wearing a button-up shirt that's in dress code, please have it buttoned. Please wear shirts that are long enough to cover your midriff, the midsection. Spaghetti straps and straps of all kinds should not be visible. And please do remember that skirts or dresses need to be just over the knee, a couple inches over the knee. And that guiding all of this, dress should simply be neat and clean as you come to school. I'd like to wish a congratulations to Phoenix Chen, Annika Giese, Simon Robertson, and Ruby Tillotson, whose one-act plays have been selected for recognition at the Vermont Young Playwrights Festival in Burlington this May. Their plays range in scope from mythologically inspired tales to realistic drama to comedy. Congratulations to all of our writers. Great job. And on Tuesday, April 1st, the Hilltoppers Valorant esports team competed against North Canton Hoover High School and won 2-0. Congratulations, esports. And then finally, before we get off and running today, I do have an announcement on campus. And so if we could get the video up here quickly. I'll start telling you about it so we can move along. You'll notice today as you're moving toward the Morse Center and the Field House, we do have construction that's taking place just onto Stowe Green that's going to interrupt foot traffic that way. So please, if you're headed to Morse, you need to use the back door. So ninth graders, that will be important for you to remember as you head to your class meeting today for advisory. So please walk around. You can either walk between Sheepcoat and the Morse Center, but go around to the back door. And for the Field House, you'll have a little bit longer of a trek, but you have two choices. If you, as you're going toward the Field House at Brantview Drive, you can go across onto the lawn and walk along that walk on the lawn. There we are. Okay, so you can walk along the walk here if you're headed toward the Field House. Just please be cognizant that drivers may not recognize that pattern, so be heads up as you're walking through campus. Thank you. And finally, today we have a special guest. Actually, we have two special guests on campus. And so it's a pleasure. I'm going to turn things over to Channing Roper in just a moment, but these are guests who've been here from the Weatherhead Center for International Affairs. And so I'll turn the podium over to Channing Roper from the Caldwell Scholars to make that introduction. Please welcome Channing.
Thank you, Mr. Lenzini. So good morning, all. It's refreshing to see lots of new faces today. It's weird for me, a senior, being here while the freshmen are here, I'll have to say that. So good morning and happy Friday. My name is Channing Roper. I am a senior, and I am delighted to introduce to you one of the two speakers I had the opportunity to meet last night at our Caldwell Scholars meeting. So her name is Erin Goodman. Erin hails from Vermont, her hometown being South Burlington. She attended college at Wellesley Women's College, which is located just outside of Boston, Mass. She studied international relations there and later studied international education policy at Harvard. She now holds the position of executive director at Harvard's Weatherhead Center. Ms. Goodman was eager to return here to her home state and was even more eager to explore campus yesterday afternoon and learn about St. Johnsbury Academy, as well as the Caldwell Scholars Program. So would you please welcome Ms. Goodman?
So thank you, Channing, and good morning, and thanks everyone for hosting me and Dr. Balta here on campus. I have to say, standing here, I haven't been in a high school in Vermont since 1998. So I'm very glad this is my return to my home state. Your school is so impressive. We had a chance to walk around yesterday and have dinner with students, and you're so lucky to be here, as we are. So in 7 minutes or less, I'm going to tell you a bit about my own pathway into international work and also what it means to be a cultural diplomat, which is something that you may or may not have heard about. I know that when I was your age, sitting an hour down the road, I had never heard of cultural diplomacy, and so the only pathway that I saw for myself in international work was to join the Foreign Service or the Peace Corps or perhaps have an academic job. But those were my opportunities that I saw in front of me without realizing at that time that every day, every time we interact with someone from another culture, we are representing our own countries. And that can be interacting in person. You have a big student body here from overseas, so your peers, or it could be interacting online, for instance, if you're vlogging or creating a video, commenting. These are interactions that ultimately will reflect not only on you, but the country that you're from. So when I was a high schooler, I had the opportunity to spend a year abroad in a small town in Chile, and that got me started with my interest in the world. I went on to focus on Latin America. I studied in Brazil in college, and then when I was in my 20s, I taught English in France, in a rural town, a bit like St. Johnsbury. And all of those experiences, besides giving me the opportunity to understand another culture, gave me the experience of being the person who is not from that place, the so-called outsider, which is sometimes a difficult position to be in. But I think that all of us at some point in our lives should have the experience of what it's like to not be of a community. Because if we're engaging in any work, not just international work, but especially diplomacy, the most important quality to have is empathy and an understanding of the other and what someone might be approaching a situation from a different perspective, really legitimizing that and giving value to perspectives that are not the ones that you might have grown up with. So I did go on to get a degree at Harvard and work at Harvard, but I realized in my early 30s that I wanted to turn my passion into my job. And my passion from early on, even before I had the opportunity to go abroad, was language. So I realized, it took me only 30-something years, that there's a profession called a translator, a literary translator, and that is someone who works with the written word. So if you're working with language, there are generally two professions, translator and interpreter. An interpreter is the person that you see behind the scenes in, say, a government meeting. If there's a speaker or an official, the interpreter is often wearing black in the corner and interpreting the spoken word, but a translator works with the written word. So if you're reading a book by an author from another country that wasn't written in English, there's always somebody behind the scenes. It's sort of an invisible profession. But that was what I was aspiring to. At first, I questioned what would give me the qualification to translate someone else's poem or their book. But I realized that, like with any other passion or skill, it's something that can be developed over time. So to overcome imposter syndrome, I took some certification courses, and then I just started translating my friends' works, poems, short stories, fiction, but I was still interested in international affairs. And so the big break for me came in 2019, so still pretty late in my career, relatively speaking. I became the translator for the opinion section at the New York Times. So any piece that was submitted to the New York Times in Spanish or Portuguese by a writer or thinker from Latin America or Spain would have my name in the byline at the very bottom, translated by. And I'll just mention that how did I get that opportunity? I had met the Latin America editor, and I badgered for a year until they had an opening and they would give me a test to become their translator. So sometimes these opportunities don't fall out of the sky, they take persistence. But I did actually feel quite nervous in that role as a translator because I was interpreting someone else's meaning, and what if I messed up or misunderstood the context? And that's how I came to see translation as a form of diplomacy. So interpreting someone else's words and meaning. So translation and working with languages can be one form of what we call cultural diplomacy. So cultural diplomacy is a form of soft power, which in the world of international relations means that you're using cultural activities, artistic engagements, student exchanges, for instance, to promote understanding between different countries and nations, rather than relying on what we call hard power, which is coercion or military power, or even tariffs, for instance, could be considered hard power. So the idea behind cultural diplomacy is to build empathy across different cultures and societies through these activities. So I'm going to give 3 examples of cultural diplomacy. The first one is sports. And I did see on your website that nearly half the students here are athletes, so that's pretty impressive. One of the first instances of sports diplomacy happened in ancient Greece in the 9th century BC. There were many conflicts going on in the ground, and the king, Iphitos at the time, wanted to break that cycle. So he consulted the Oracle of Delphi, as the legend goes, who recommended creating a sporting competition to bring people together, even for a temporary pause. And so that became the Olympic Games, and an international treaty was created to recognize the sanctuary of the place of Olympia. And that's known as the Olympic Truce. So another example today is the World Cup. If we have any soccer football fans, the World Cup is a great forum for sports diplomacy and an opportunity to represent nations. And each of you on an individual level, anyone who's competing against people from other nations, is also, you're representing your own nation. Some more modern examples in the 70s when the Cold War was at its height. So US and China were, the relations were very tense. The US ping pong team received an invitation from the Chinese team to go to China. And that was sort of unheard of at the time, and Time magazine proclaimed it was the ping heard around the world. And, but the trip did happen. The US ping pong team went to China with President Nixon at the time, and it opened relations between the two countries and came to be known as ping pong diplomacy. And just more like 8-9 years ago, when the US and Cuba normalized relations and there were embassies opening in both countries, the Major League Baseball sent a team down to play against the Cuban national team. And so sports was a really big part of the opening between our country and Cuba as well. Another way that we can promote cultural diplomacy is through the arts. And last night at dinner, I had the chance to sit with several students who are really passionate about music. And it reminded me of a good friend of mine. Her name is Carla Canales. She's an opera singer, and she's first known for singing Carmen in more than 1,000 stages around the world, but she knew that beyond singing, she wanted to engage in international work of some kind. So she became what's called an arts envoy for the State Department. And whenever she went on tour, she would hold master classes and workshops with local musicians in that place. She had the honor recently of serving the Biden administration in a new position, the topmost cultural diplomacy position in our country, called the Senior Advisor and Envoy for Cultural Exchange. She also created the Artists for Understanding organization and participated in a new global music diplomacy initiative in Beijing. So music, dance, visual arts, they transcend language and allow us to connect on a more universal level. So it's a different level of understanding. And all sorts of festivals around the world, from arts festivals and music festivals, are ways to engage as well. So finally, food might be unexpected, but eating can be diplomacy as well. So there's a term which was only coined around 2013 called gastrodiplomacy, or culinary diplomacy. And it's been described as a government's practice of exporting its national culinary heritage as part of a public diplomacy effort, or more simply, winning hearts and minds through stomachs. So one example of this is the government of Thailand had an initiative starting 20 years ago to train and export thousands of chefs and restaurant workers to send them overseas and promote Thai culture through the dish that you might have heard of called Pad Thai, which was engineered as the national dish of Thailand, and people were sent around the world to promote Thai cuisine in open restaurants in different countries. Just today, I believe that the number of Thai restaurants is the highest number per capita of any other international cuisine. Even more, there are many more Thai restaurants than Mexican restaurants in the United States, for example. So this project, which is now 23 years old, the government thought that it would it would continue to contribute to agricultural exports, it would change the image of a country that had been known for other things, and it would attract tourists to the country. So ultimately, this program has been very successful. But individuals can also be what I call gastro-diplomats. If you think of people like Anthony Bourdain, or even influencers you see on TikTok and Instagram going to other places and showing street food, fine dining, sharing the lens of a country through food. There's also an organization called World Central Kitchen that you might have heard of. It's founded by a Spanish chef named Jose Andres, who was a chef, but just like my friend Carla, decided that he wanted to contribute to the world in some other bigger way. And he created this humanitarian aid program that would open up kitchens in disaster areas. So they've been in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, they've been in Ukraine and Gaza, they've been in LA recently with the wildfires, and he's known as one of today's, or probably today's most famous gastro diplomat. And he has a right-hand person and a cookbook co-author named Sam Chappell-Sokol. And Sam grew up also down the road in Essex, Vermont, and I had a chance to meet him a couple of weeks ago. And I asked him how he got started in this career of gastrodiplomacy, and he said that he graduated from Tufts University, and he realized after studying diplomacy that his real passion was food. How is he going to combine these two? But he was applying for jobs in Washington, D.C., and he applied for a job at the White House. They didn't have anything for him, but they called him up and said, well, we do have a pastry chef job. Are you interested in that? So he took that job and started out by baking 35,000 cookies a month at the White House. And then went on to be one of the chefs who would cook the state dinners when you had visitors from other countries coming to meet with the president. And then he twice convened at the White House what's called the Club des Chefs, so the chefs of the heads of state, chef d'etat. So I don't think food can get more diplomatic than the chef des chefs. So to sum up, cultural diplomacy, it's said, reveals the soul of a nation, which in turn creates this influence or soft power, a way of creating understanding and empathy across countries. And on both a large scale and as individuals, we all have the power to be cultural diplomats, whether it's in these everyday interactions we have, or by harnessing our passions and thinking beyond that particular topic, like music or art or language, and thinking, how can we represent our countries in our interactions every day? So I would say that especially today, this kind of para-diplomatic work is as important, more important than ever. So, thank you.
Ms. Goodman, thank you. I completely agree. Excited to hear those comments, and I know that it's an inspiration to us as well as we think about our talents and our passions, how we can connect with others. I love the idea of cultural diplomacy, and I love seeing it in action. So thank you again for sharing with us. And Dr. Balta, thank you as well for being on campus with us and sharing with our Caldwell Scholars last evening. Have a great Friday, faculty. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.